Audioversity, the voice of Reichman University.
כל האוניברסיטה אודיוורסיטי.
I said, should we keep on talking till the end, or maybe we should, we should say goodbye. I'll tell you I love you, and you had a full life, and you can go with a feeling of fulfillment. He said, yeah, thank you. Let's do that. And we said goodbye. And afterwards she wrote that they're inside the house, and I wrote her, I'm with you. She said, I feel you. And at first I thought to myself, what are you empathizing with me for? I mean, what do you mean you feel me? I read it as she's sorry for me. What? But then I understood that she meant that she feels my presence. It was touching.
Welcome to Raw, a podcast where we confront the complexities of war from the inside out. I'm Anouk, a journalist, author, yoga teacher, and meditation practitioner. Raw, or war spelled backwards, symbolizes how many of us feel in the face of the Israel-Gaza conflict: exposed, vulnerable, and seeking understanding. Here, we don't just discuss the external battles, but dive deep into our internal struggles, examining how this violence has shaken our very core. Join me in conversations with philosophers, psychologists, and spiritual leaders as we explore how to navigate these painful times with wisdom and resilience, finding guidance for our own paths through this raw, unfiltered world. On October 6th, Yonathan Zeigen was busy living his life as a social worker and father of two in Tel Aviv. He had resigned himself to leaving political activism to his mother, Vivian Silver, a petite but mighty peace activist known for her warm smile and for founding the initiative Women Wage Peace. But on October 7th, Vivian was tragically murdered by Hamas in her kibbutz on the Gaza border, having spent her final hours on the phone with her son. This devastating event stirred something profound in Yonatan, compelling him to step into his mother's shoes. More than ever, he felt the urgent need to continue her fight for peace, even in the midst of overwhelming war. Yonatan, welcome. Thank you for coming into the studio this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We were just laughing just a minute ago, but our listeners can get to hear, just because this is typical Israeliness. I said, where do you live in Tel Aviv? And you said Florentine. And then I said, the mix of the kibbutz and Florentine, which is this like hip area of Tel Aviv, is why you came into this interview with torn shorts and sandals. And I came in with a shirt and pants because I live in North Tel Aviv. Different worlds.
But where are you from originally?
I'm from Belgium, actually. And you're the first person to ask me that. And I'm sure the listeners will be surprised because most people think I'm American.
Right.
And I have actually never lived in the United States. And actually, I did my higher education, my university studies in London. So if anything, I should have a British accent. But I am married to an American, and we've been together for quite a long time. And he says I should be a Mossad spy. He still sometimes believes maybe I am, because in all languages, I speak a few, I have a very local accent. But the Mossad never tried to recruit me, so maybe I should be offended.
Well, we can't know if that's
if that's the truth or not. Yonatan, first of all, it's lovely to see you smile and laugh despite the tragic circumstances that made you become someone who comes on to radio shows and gets interviewed. So your mother is Vivian Silver. She was murdered on October 7th. She was known throughout her life for being a fierce peace activist. And I was looking again this morning at a picture of her, and in all these articles, you know, it says she's fierce and fearless and all these things, and she just has such a lovely aura. I never met her, but just in her picture, she just looked so lovely and petite and delicate, and just such a nice smile. I'm sure she'd just be lovely to absolutely anyone she met. It's interesting that she became in her death this kind of symbol, this idea that different sides are using to make quite extreme points. So I've heard some people, and this is terrible, saying, you know, left-wing people like her, peace building never worked. You know, her attempt to reach out her hand didn't save her. And then, you know, you have the other side, which is putting her up as the symbol of what Israel should always have been and should be. But she was, to you, just a mom, just a person. And I'm sure in life she wasn't completely fearless or fierce. I'm sure she had her own fears and doubts. And I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about Vivian, the person, and also about her final moments in Kibbutz Be'eri. You were on the phone with her. You were the last one to speak with her. Tell us a little bit how Vivian, the person, was still there in those final moments.
As you pointed out, she had very interesting dualities in her life, because she was fierce and stubborn and driven, and a lot of people didn't want to get into arguments with her because she was very compelling and assertive. But at the same time, she was so nice and sensitive and very focused on relationships, interpersonal relationships. I think that was the base of every interaction she had, professionally and ideologically. It was always based in interpersonal relationships. And I think that's part of the reason why she became so known or appreciated in the world. Not only the work she did, but how she did it. And yeah, she was my mother and my brother's mother and grandmother to our children. And she was very soft at it. I would tease her a lot of times. I would say, how is it that you run so many things? You know, you're a manager and a CEO and run initiatives, and you can't face me at home. You can't decide, you have to matter what I thought or what your kids thought. And yeah, it was funny.
Tell me about her final moments and your final exchanges.
Well, we were on the phone for all these hours, those hours. At first I didn't pay it much attention, waking up in Tel Aviv from the alarms. But pretty soon I realized it's something unusual, and I called her, and we were talking, some on the phone and some via WhatsApp. And up until quite late, which was pretty early in the overall event, but she died at 11 a.m. So I was with her for a few hours, and she kept it pretty cool most of the time, and we were joking a lot and trying to figure out what's going on in a calm way. She wasn't hysterical. I remember one conversation I talked to her, and I heard over the phone, I heard the gunshots and yelling outside her window, and I said, okay, what's the protocol? What do we do in a situation like this? And she said, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I said, should we keep on talking till the end, or maybe we should, we should say goodbye. I'll tell you I love you, and you had a full life, and you can go with a feeling of fulfillment. He said, yeah, thank you. Let's do that. And we said goodbye. And afterwards, she wrote that they're inside the house, and I wrote her, I'm with you. She said, I feel you. And at first I said, I thought to myself, what are you empathizing with me for? I mean, what do you mean you feel me? I read it as she's sorry for me. What? But then I understood that she meant that she feels my presence. It was touching.
That was the last she wrote you?
Yeah.
After that, you and most people thought she had been abducted. It took, I think, more than a month for her remains to be found.
Mm-hmm.
How was that month of thinking she was taken?
It was psychotic, really intense time. At first, the first couple of hours, I was sure she was dead. And it was very silent in my mind, and I started processing, and I don't know, this tender feeling of loss. And then it became, it became very intense in the feeling that she's not dead, because there's nobody knows anything. People, her neighbors, I already knew about neighbors of hers that were dead, and we geolocated her phone. It was still in the kibbutz, but it moved, and so we started thinking she was kidnapped. And then the fake news about or misleading news about the hostages in the dining room. So we were sure, we thought maybe she's one of them. And a day passes, and another day, and no news, nothing, no information about what happened to the house, even, because they were still fighting. Only on Wednesday, my father-in-law was able to go to the house, because he works in agriculture in the kibbutz, and only then he told me that the house was burnt down, but he didn't find anything. So friends of hers told me, you should start working, campaigning. I said, what? What are you talking about? I'm waiting. No, this is a situation of a campaign. So I started private task force with friends of hers, colleagues, and we were working, very intensely working, in terms of media and putting her on the agenda, and meetings with the Canadian embassy and staff.
She's Canadian, Israeli,
and together with the hostage families, stream of information. It's not real information, but you all the time you're looking for information.
Yeah.
And WhatsApp groups and interviews, hundreds of interviews. So it was very intense, and afterwards I felt weirdly, I appreciated that period of time where she was dead. She died at 11 on the 7th of October, but for me, she was still alive for more than a month, and I carried her with me in a different manner than if I knew she was dead. It was a unique experience in that sense. But I remember, going to funerals of my community, in my community, because so many people died in Be'eri, and people, a mother burying her son and hugging. I'm hugging her, and she's sorry for me. I said, what? I didn't understand that. I still have this hope, She told me, we know how to deal with grief, with loss. That's something we have mechanisms for. But this uncertainty and this, limbo of the hostages. And afterwards I understood. And now I am kind of grateful that I don't have to be a part of the hostage families now. It's just so terrible.
So going back to you, to your life before, you're a social worker living in Tel Aviv. You have 3 young kids. You walk around wearing torn shorts. You have this life, and you say that you're pretty politically blasé. You are kind of in a political coma, or at least a kind of form of diminished consciousness, and you're just trying to be a good family man and to enjoy your life, while at the same time telling your mother that that Israel is dead and there's no future, and you're disenchanted like many young liberal left-leaning people, but you're living your life, and then October 7th happens and the death of your mother, and at some point you realize that you have to take on her mantle, and you have to carry the torch, and you leave your job and you become a full-time activist. You travel the world, you speak on panels, you speak at conferences, you meet with international leaders, you're part of you sometimes meet with a families forum. What does that change do to a person, and how do you feel about yourself now versus how you felt about yourself before?
Your questions are long and complex. I was always conscious, and I was always politically fired up, but it wasn't synchronized with any doing. That's the part I gave up on, being involved and invested in it. So I think that there was a part in my life that felt alienated, or alienation, in terms of living a normal bourgeois life, as far as you can be bourgeois as a social worker in Israel, and thinking that nothing is sustainable. And in that sense, now, sadly, I feel connected, in tune between my thoughts and my actions. In the personal sense, there's the question of healing, of what do you do in the face of pain or trauma, because the feeling on October 7th was so helpless, and now I gained this control on my fate or on my narrative, so there's a healing aspect to it. And in terms of the politics of it, I really felt that I have to be involved, that the before and after effect was so strong. I couldn't go back to being uninvolved. Unwillingly, I got this new status of bereavement, and I felt responsible to utilize it in order to create change, in order to try to shape the reality around me. All of us, we need change. We need change in the Middle East, between Israel and Palestine, and if I am in a position that I have a stage, then I'm obligated to be involved. War pushes the public opinion. It pushes it very to a dark place. If we want the public to express positive ideas, we need positive settings. We need peace. When we get to the point that we make peace with the Palestinians, you'll see polls with the Palestinians loving Israelis and supporting peace and wanting it. There's Israelis and Palestinians who want peace, and there are Israelis and Palestinians who don't want peace. And at the moment, the majority in both peoples are engulfed in this attitudes of war. It's dynamic. It can change in a heartbeat if we have a political vision, if we have like a prospect of a different settings in the Middle East.
Because I meditate and I'm quite aware of what's the thought streams that happen in my own brain, I will notice that depending on what I read and the people that I surround myself with, and how much I am on social media, particularly for me, my internal kind of subconscious, subliminal messaging will be very, very different. I am willing to be very honest in the fact that sometimes, for example, when I see certain kind of propagandist messages showing how they are celebrating in the streets, or even like things like I will hear about some politician in Belgium, which is where I'm from, saying some atrocious thing about Jews or even about all of Israel, etc. It will kind of suck me back like a vacuum cleaner into a space of feeling personally threatened, and it will make me want to come really close in with my tribe. And so suddenly I'm in a place where even the people among my tribe are not so much individuals. It doesn't so much matter what they individually think or whether they're kind or unkind, or they're my people. And so I must protect them, and because I want them to protect me. My psychological feeling of fragility in the face of the world's verbal or physical or imagined violence. And the other side, whoever is not part of my tribe, will suddenly become much less real. I think it's really important to have a discussion about that as well, because one of the things that happens is that we humanize, dehumanize, and I think, unfortunately, the majority of people don't think about, through no fault of their own, but they don't realize to what extent the circumstances and what surrounds them, and again, what they read and who they speak with, and how much they want to belong in their community, etc., how much that affects what they think and whether they humanize or dehumanize certain people.
I think that the fact that we are so fragile in our conscience, and that everything is so, on the metronome of humanizing, dehumanizing, like you said, we need people, a small group of people or representatives to be detached and to be above, and to have the resources, mental, time, place, space, to transcend the daily psychological mechanisms of just, being a person, and to create options and prospects. And we need to, the public needs to choose. I mean, democracy, this idea of a group handing us options, and we're the ones who choose. We don't have options. For a long time, we didn't have options. We've been sold this idea that there's only one option, the military option. No diplomacy for so long. So we lost sight of it. We lost the ability to imagine it. And I think it's false. Like you said, I really identify with what you said. And I think that's the basic human condition. Then we need leaders to not be a part of the same mechanism, but to show us different options. And regarding, I thought about what you said about fundamentalism. It's not. I think fundamentalism is a human condition. It's another mechanism, and it thrives in certain circumstances, and it fizzles in other. We have been feeding fundamentalism in our region for a long time. We see it on the Jewish side as well. We see it in our government. We see it in the West Bank, Jewish fundamentalism, and we see it with the Palestinians or in Islam. It's all circumstances. I'm willing to accept that not every tribe has the same set of values, but every person is built similarly. We're not different internally. We're different culturally. We're different in what circumstances we were brought up in. We want different outcomes. We need different circumstances. It's very simple in my mind.
It makes me think, again, I think there's, many people who could listen to this conversation and say that's so naive. But first of all, I think you can't talk about naivete unless you come down to the details, to the details of what working towards peace would mean. And I think that if we don't even have that conversation, because I think if we had that conversation, I can imagine some people, some leaders, like you say, rising above that noise and saying, for example, we are going to work and do everything we can in order to build up in a potential partner a desire.
Where is our peace minister?
Right. There's no peace minister.
Where are the resources going towards peace ever?
You're no longer doing the job you used to do. Does that affect your personal life?
We're very open in the house, so they know everything. They know father doesn't have a job, a paying job. He doesn't have a salary, but he's busy. And he's doing work. And I feel at least that they are proud of me. And that they feel that their father is invested in something. He's not just going to work, he's invested in something, which makes a difference. But yeah, the daily schedule is more chaotic.
Do you ever have thoughts of leaving, going somewhere else, not having to fight for this place, for your mom's legacy, for your kids to not have to be a part of this? Do these thoughts cross your mind?
They do, but it stays theoretical, because I don't know. I feel kind of universalist, and this isn't particular. Pain is everywhere. So I'll encounter a different kind of pain and different kinds of injustice anywhere in the world. And this is where I was born. This is my language. This is my family and friends and culture. And so I need to cope with what is in front of me. and to try and make it better. I told my partner before October 7th, I told her, what do you say? Maybe we'll go. Things are not pleasant. He said, a lot of nations go through very dark times. And there are always people who go through those times. We are those people that don't leave and go through the dark times. I said, wow, that's a very interesting fatalist perspective. But there's something romantic in it. And after October 7th, and after Vivian was identified, I asked her, well, have we gotten to the red line? Is now the time we live? She said, what are you talking about? We're going back to the kibbutz to rebuild.
So what would you say motivates you? What is the driving force that is keeping you going?
These kinds of catastrophes, I think, create the possibility of change. They create movement. That's for sure. It's a certain thing. There is movement. The status quo shattered. The tectonic boards are shifting. And I became driven to try and pull this movement into the change I want to see. And it brings me a sense of, conviction and a mission. There's something to be done. So I'm doing it. Like my partner says, you have to move the clothes from the machine to the dryer. So I'm doing it.
Very simple missions. And do you feel the same sense of accomplishment with that as going to speak on an international panel? You did it. You put the clothes from the machine in the dryer.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. You have a box and you checked that mission. You feel like you did something. You feel like you accomplished something. Like Maoz always says that hope is something Maoz Inon,
who also lost his parents.
Yeah, and he says this thing about hope is something you create. I can imagine myself being very cynical about that before. And now I identify with it. It's true. I feel, when I do something, I really feel I'm creating hope. And when I talk to officials, representatives of states, sometimes I see like something flicker in their eyes that says, that's an interesting perspective, or that's an interesting idea that maybe has potential.
So what do you think is something you would ask the average Israeli, although there's nothing like an average Israeli to do right now? What do you think is the most important?
It's hard for me to tell others what to do, because, nobody would have listened to me, right? If Vivian would have survived, or if we weren't living in Be'eri. So how can I tell anybody that doesn't have a stage to know this is what you need to do? Do whatever you can, Do what you can. And also, I didn't do anything since I was 20-something years old. So it's hard for me to say to others to do something. But if you have an idea, and if you have an outlet, and if you say, no, I can go to demonstrations, or I can arrange dialogue sessions in my workplace, I can do a podcast on political issues. Be involved, be invested, take it into heart.
Thank you so much for coming in and for speaking with me. And very sorry for your loss. And I wish you a lot of luck and strength on your mission to try to make things better for your children and for our country.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. This has been Raw. To listen to more of our episodes, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. I'm Anouk Laurie. Goodbye.